Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Extra Point here on WEG on 91.1 FM. I'm your host, Jared Dillard, here with my co-host, Meredith Brito. Meredith, how you doing today?
Good, you finally got my name right.
Well, I mean, it was either that or we'll replace you anyway. So, moving on to our first... Well, you give me a surprised look when I said that.
Yeah, how could you replace me?
Well, see, you fill out a piece of paper and you bring somebody else in. That's just how the world works, I guess. Don't worry, you're not going anywhere.
What a depressing start to the show.
Well, you know what else is depressing? We'll get to that later. But anyway, let's go ahead and start the show. First, we're going to talk about Auburn men basketball. Most specifically, Kareem Canty suspended by Bruce Pearl and company for an apparent altercation with coaching staff. Meredith, give me your take.
I'm just a little surprised that this happened shortly after Simeon Bauer's suspension. You think that the teammates would kind of learn, like, hey, we can't get in arguments with the coach. You know, look what happened to Simeon. They suspended him right off the bat. But I guess Kareem wasn't too worried about that, or something just happened that really made him mad. But after this, I mean, Auburn basketball's offense is really going to fall. He was our leading scorer for almost every single game, I feel like.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, Auburn basketball was already, you know, on the downward spiral for this year.
But just a little more now.
I mean, I don't want to say that Bruce lost the locker room, but he may have lost the locker room. What's going on? How can you have players in altercations with the coaching staff? I mean, what is going on to where two big, you know, pretty important pieces of your offense, of your team, are getting into altercations with the staff? I mean, the walk-ons are about to earn their place on the team because they're going to be tabbed to play a good bit of these games.
Exactly.
If it keeps up.
I think some of this might be happening just partially because of all the losses that have been going on, and possibly Bowers and Canty, you know, suggested a few ideas about how they can improve, you know, from these losses and how they should go about it. And Bruce Pearl probably just did not like the ideas, and it probably just started some pretty violent arguments. But, you know, you see people like Horace Spencer come in, you know, after replacing Simeon Bowers in that game, and Horace Spencer did his job. You wouldn't have thought he was a backup. Well, maybe, but, you know, he did a pretty good job for his first start.
Apply some ice to that burn. You burned Horace Spencer pretty bad with that backup reference right there.
Well, Horace did pretty well is what I'm trying to say. Trying to replace Simeon Bowers in that game, he did pretty well.
He did, and to put that game on him, to come in and try to fill those shoes, it's not going to be on him. He's going to do his job to the best of his abilities, and if they can't pull out a win, that's not going to be on him. Auburn's season is, I mean, guys, we still got women's basketball, so it's not totally lost on the basketball spectrum, but the men, you know, it's done. It's over. I mean, there's hope for a better season next season. There's hope for a couple more wins this season, but any momentum that Auburn basketball had after that Kentucky game is shot and it's gone.
Exactly. We've just lost so many games, and we've lost so many road games this season too, and it's kind of hard to be considered a really good team when you can't win on the road like they haven't been able to do. And they've lost so many conference games this year. It's just stunning how many games they've lost in their own conference this year.
Moving on, well, and I'll elaborate on that point. Auburn basketball, men specifically, hasn't played well in the SEC in how many years? So that's not really surprising.
Long time.
But moving on to something more exciting, Auburn, once again, in football, has a top 10 recruiting class, finishing 9th on the ESPN big board. How are we feeling about this recruiting class?
I'm feeling pretty good about it. I like that we brought in two dual threat quarterbacks. I think that will kind of help a little bit with the quarterback struggles we had last year. But, you know, I think this kind of gives some momentum going into the season and possibly, you know, exciting the players that just went through a pretty hard season last year. And if they turn out pretty well, you know, Gus Malzahn could secure his job.
I think when you look at it, Auburn's always had a top 10 recruiting class. It's what you do with that talent to make that team. And it's like, and it sucks because if you look at the top 10 recruiting class, Auburn is still like the 6th SEC team on that list because SEC teams just get stacked when it comes to recruiting.
Exactly.
And it's like, I'm excited at one, like in one retrospect, I'm excited for the class, but in the other, I'm worried because I don't know if their talents will be used to their full potential.
Exactly. And one thing I kind of thought about a little bit was if I was a recruit and I was being recruited by all the SEC teams, I don't know if Auburn would be my first choice. You know, you look at the excitement UGA's having and, you know, Alabama coming off a national championship and Ole Miss and LSU having really good seasons. Why does Auburn have such a great recruiting class? Is it the coaching staff that brings in these players, but they just don't know what to do with the talent?
I think it can be a mixture of a lot of points. I think when it really just comes down to it, it's just the development of players. Just whether that's the coaching staff, whether that's just their personal lives that they get into, how they develop as young men, that can all play a factor into what transpires while they're at Auburn, and it can affect what happens on the field.
I agree. But do you think Gus Malzahn and the staff is what's bringing in this top 10 recruiting class?
In a sense, yes. I feel, Auburn's a nice place to play football. Nice they're a nice SEC school. And I feel like people do want to play for Gus, and people realize that Auburn's on the cusp of breaking out if they can get the right formula together. So it's alluring. And it's not like you're an SEC school, so you automatically have top 25 recruiting class. I mean, look at Ole Miss,
Kentucky.
Look at like all these schools that, you know, other than Vanderbilt, because Vanderbilt medical school, let's go. But I mean, other than that, like they all do well.
I think so. And you know what? If Auburn gets a solid, like, one or two good defensive players that start next year and they fix the quarterback situation, you know, Auburn could be a team to watch out for. You know, when they came into the preseason rankings last year, ranked number 6, they clearly saw something in this team that they thought would succeed. Maybe if they just get these pieces together, this will be a pretty good team in the SEC. They're not that far behind when you think about it.
And with that, we're going to head to commercial break. When we come back, we're going to get into the topic that everybody is talking about, Super Bowl 50. You're listening to the Xtra Point here on WEGL 91.1 FM.
Dad, we need to talk.
Can we just enjoy the drive?
If you're not going to listen to me, who will we listen to? Jeffrey.
Ah! Marcia Gay Harden, what?
Eyes on the road, Dad.
What are you doing? What are you doing in my back seat? How did you get in here?
You're getting older.
Not that old.
Your brain's changing. It's natural.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Honey, I've got experience with this. Jeffrey, brain health is all about making the most of your brain as you age and helping to reduce some of the risks to your brain.
Really? Now that's interesting.
So, you'll talk to her about this, but not me. Marcia Gay Harden? Where did she go?
Learn what you can do to help keep your brain healthy at brainhealth.gov. She didn't say goodbye? I mean, I would have. Visit brainhealth.gov.
And welcome back to the Extra Point here on WEGL 91.1 FM. I'm your host, Jared Dilley, here with my co-host, Meredith Brito. Meredith, we're going to talk about Super Bowl 50. It was Cam Newton versus the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning, and what could have been Peyton Manning's final game. The Denver Broncos were victorious in said game, taking down Carolina 24-10, and what some people call a sloppy game, what some people call defensive struggle, which some people call one of the worst Super Bowls they've seen in their life. What is your take on the game?
Well, let's start off by saying I was thoroughly entertained during this game, unlike some people. I really kind of liked, how this game went. It was a little different than most. And it really was a defensive battle instead of an offensive battle like most, games have been this year. But you know what? Like, Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers offense, they just had a really, really bad day. I don't think they planned very well for this number one offense.
I will also say that I enjoyed the game as well. I think the Broncos played a spectacular game. The Panthers, the Panthers knew what they had to do. They tried to do it, but I just think the Broncos were that much better. And I think as the game went on, the Panthers realized that this drive, every drive they were on in the second half was going to make or break them, and we got to score. And in the beginning of the second half, it was that. The Panthers were moving the ball down the field. The momentum seemed like it was going the Panthers' way. And then they were just deflated with turnovers.
Exactly. And, I think this kind of showed some of the areas of weakness on their offense, because one thing that the Carolina Panthers haven't done very well this year is scoring points in the second half. I remember there were numerous games this year, like the Giants game, where, they started off being ahead by so much and then they fell behind. And in this game, they didn't start off ahead at all. So they felt like all this pressure because they had no room to mess up. But it also showed the issue of their offensive line. Their offensive line wasn't able to protect Cam Newton very well against that great pass rush the Denver Broncos had. And also, it really showed, how important it is to have offensive weapons. Because once they took away Greg Olsen, Cotry and Ted Ginn Jr. just dropped so many passes.
I see a lot of people talking about Carolina and the mistakes they made, and you should have caught this, you shouldn't have fumbled this. Whatever happened, your defense played well, and the offense just could not get anything going. Denver put the pressure on and got rattled, and that's okay. And it's okay to make those mistakes. Should that Jericho Cotry catch been a catch? I thought it was a catch. I thought it was a catch.
Didn't.
I thought that we can debate that later. I thought that was a catch. I thought it should have been overturned. Whatever. Things like that happen in games. It's happened to every team this year. Yes, even the Cleveland Browns, and they were going to win the game anyway. I feel as though that when things like that happen, you just gotta pull up your pants, buckle them up, and just go.
I agree, and I don't think that should be, what decides which team deserved to win, because one catch shouldn't be the difference between a game like that, because you really saw the dominance of that Denver defense in that game. Now, the offense, on the other hand, and I was about to mess this up, they weren't as dominant, but they were able to manage the game, and they didn't make that many mistakes, whereas the Carolina offense did. But you also have to give credit to the Carolina defense, and I think the Carolina defense is part of the reason why people still have hope for them going into next season, and we'll get into that later. But, I just think that the Carolina Panthers, don't put your heads down too much. I think you'll be okay next year.
Going into the 3-point shoot around where we give 3 topics from the week. I'll start with my first topic. Meredith, one of the biggest things about the Super Bowl is not only the game, but the commercials. And
yes.
One commercial featured a puppy baby monkey. And I will tell you that thing must have crawled from the deepest, darkest corners of my nightmares when I saw it. Credit to Mountain Dew and Kickstart for that commercial, because let me tell you something. Ain't nobody gonna forget what happened. That fateful commercial. Nobody's gonna forget that. So I give them props. It was interesting.
But it scared you a little.
But what was it?
I'm not really sure. I mean, it was a good commercial and everything, but what was the reason for having that there? I don't even know what to call it.
For a second, when I saw this puppy baby monkey during this commercial, I instantly thought that California legalized marijuana. But they didn't. So then I wondered,
I mean, who comes up with an idea like that?
is somebody who either takes some over-the-counter medications, quote unquote, or somebody who had a very traumatic childhood.
Or someone that's just really terrified of something that keeps reoccurring in their dreams for some reason.
Who sat at a board meeting who was just like, guys, I got it. Puppy, baby, monkey, let's book it. Who said that? Because I want to shake
I know
their
I
hand.
wouldn't.
I want to shake their hand.
So you like it? I thought you said
it's,
you were scared of it.
It's creepy. It's scary, but I like it. Is that weird?
You know why people probably like it? Because now you remember that commercial, and everyone's going to be talking about it, and they're going to go buy that product.
I've never drinking a Mountain Dew Kickstart, but guess what? I may buy one if I see it. And
Really?
I feel that's the whole point of a commercial, ain't it?
Yes, and, to spread the word and make people want to buy the product. But I guess if people are talking about it, that's, the most effective form of advertising.
Meredith, for your first topic in the 3-point shootout, you had a very interesting take on a certain Manning brother.
Yes. All right. So I'm sure a bunch of people that watched the Super Bowl saw the part where they kind of knew that the Broncos locked up the win, and they turned to the Manning press box. And you look, and everyone's screaming at the top of their lungs. They're all super happy. And then you see mopey Eli. Why are you mopey, Eli? Are you depressed that your brother's about to have the same amount of Super Bowl rings as you? What do you think, Jared?
I just remember looking up, and Eli just it seemed like it was that look on your face that you got when you realized that you can't one up your older brother anymore. It was like your older brother always beat you in like a game of cards, and then like he figured out your strategy, and that was the look you had on your face. But somebody tweeted the look on your face when your younger or older brother came home with a better report card than you, and that was your face. And that was highly true.
Yeah, but I mean, I think people would have said regardless that Peyton was probably more of a legendary quarterback than Eli. Eli's just a little bit more inconsistent, but that I think I would be happy for family regardless, even though he plays on a different team.
Maybe he was just caught up in the moment. Maybe he didn't know.
He was stunned.
Maybe he just didn't know how to react. I mean, it's Eli Manning.
I mean, but the fact of the matter is he wasn't happy like everyone else. Everyone was cheering at the top of their lungs, and then he looked like the most depressed person out there.
You know what happened?
What?
He saw the puppy baby monkey.
Maybe he's just terrified. It's gonna come after him.
Moving on to the second topic. Meredith, you want to talk about Gary Kubiak for some odd reason?
I just thought, they showed up a statistic at the end of the game, and Gary Kubiak was, I believe, one of four coaches to win the Super Bowl coaching a team for the first year. And I think that's pretty spectacular when you think about it. The turnaround that they had, losing the Super Bowl, against Seattle a few years back, and then to come out and have this defensive performance like they just did. Props to Gary Kubiak. Whatever he did, that team's fired up. It looks like they have really good team chemistry, and I think they're going to be good for a while, even if Peyton Manning retires.
I'm really glad that Gary Kubiak got another shot, because it wasn't long ago that he was in Houston and they booted him out.
And he also had a stroke in Houston.
Well, that would add insult to injury.
Yeah, but now I think, now he can relax a little. He won the Super Bowl. I'm happy for the guy. And I think it just shows that he's a really good coach and that this team could be good for a really long time.
I mean, he does have something that Houston doesn't, and that is a Super Bowl. So take that, Houston. You have Brandon Whedon now.
That's correct. And you know what? And this defense, I would take this defense any day over Houston's defense.
I would take Johnny Manziel and the Cleveland Browns over Houston.
Yeah, but that's because you're a
just went
Colts
there.
fan.
I am a Colts fan, so I don't.
I would take the Texans over the Cleveland Browns, though.
That's right. That was my little bit of Colts bias coming out about the Texans.
I mean, the Texans, if you give them one more good wide receiver and you give them a good quarterback, they could be a really good team. Cleveland, I don't know what your problem is. You have way too many issues.
Cleveland has more issues than I don't. Actually, there's nothing right now that has more issues than Cleveland. They'll figure it out within the next 38 years or something like that.
Maybe. I think one of their main problems though is they keep kicking out all their coaches. They don't have any consistency ever. And they're so disorganized. Whereas now, like I started this argument, the Broncos are going to be good for a while because they're going to keep this coach.
Moving on to my second topic in the 3-point shoot around is you should never doubt noodle arm Peyton Manning. Week in and week out, people said Peyton Manning has a noodle arm.
Even you.
And I've said it. Peyton Manning does have he doesn't have the same zip on the ball he once had. That's agreeable. Everybody agrees on that.
For sure. And one thing that I kind of noticed was, when it was 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 10, they ran the ball every single time because he just can't make that throw anymore.
And he can't. However,
they were still able to win.
That's even worse. That how can you call somebody noodle arm and they beat you by not one score but 2?
Well, the defense did score a touchdown.
The defense did score a touchdown. And don't worry, I'll get to that. I'll get to that in the end of the show.
The only success Peyton Manning had in the red zone himself was that 2-point conversion, though. Most of it was C.J. Anderson running the ball.
What I get from it is that call him what you want, or not call him what you want, because people respect Peyton Manning. It's not like
everyone should.
It's not like people were calling him names or something. But when people were saying his career is over, they should bring in Brock Osweiler for the Super Bowl. The Broncos stand no chance. You can't doubt Peyton Manning.
I agree. And you know what? One thing he did was he was a really good game manager in this game. He made very few mistakes. And,
he did.
That could be the difference in the game. Had he threw an interception that went back, that could have been a really, really close game. But, Peyton Manning didn't make too many mistakes in this game. And that's what led to a win. And that was the most important thing about their offensive strategy, not making mistakes.
Well, we're going to wrap up this segment, and we're going to head into a commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to finish up the 3-point shootout and then play a little game. You listen to the Extra Point here on WEGL 91.1 FM.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard, so you don't need to mooch off your friends.
You gonna finish that grape?
You mean the one in my mouth?
You don't need to stop buying the necessities.
What you're smelling is a natural musk.
Ew.
You don't need to be a medical test subject.
How do you feel?
Mostly okay. Sometimes, though.
You don't need to get a second job as a stuntman.
We need a new stuntman. Let's break for lunch.
You just need an internet connection. Don't get left behind. Start your personal savings plan with the tips and tools on feedthepig.org. That way, you don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
All right, deal.
Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Making it green is making sure the air in your home is healthy for your family to breathe. Make sure you test your home for the presence of radon. It's easy. To learn more, call 866-730-GREEN. Preserve your family's health and well-being. Get your home tested. That's living healthy and green.
Make it green. Green, green. Make it green. It's your home, it's your dream. It's your dream.
Make sure you test your home for the presence of radon. It's easy. To learn more, call 866-730-GREEN.
A message from the U.S. EPA.
And welcome back to the Extra Point here on WEGL 91.1 FM. We're going to close out our segment at 3-point shootout with our last topics, and one of them is, for me, why Brock Osweiler should be proud of this season. Because let's remember, Brock Osweiler did start in 7 games for the Broncos this season. One of them against the New England Patriots, and he came out 5-2. For all intents and purposes, Brock Osweiler was one of the reasons why the Broncos won the Super Bowl. Because in any other path to the Super Bowl, they may not have won.
I agree, and they had a really, really hard schedule this year. But one thing is that, I thought about this. If Peyton Manning played the way he had been towards the end of the season in those games, would they have made it to the Super Bowl? Brock Osweiler played some pretty good games for a young guy. I think, he should be really proud of this season because he had as much to do with it in this season alone, just this season, as Peyton Manning did. Peyton Manning just closed out the deal.
When it came to the Super Bowl, and they were talking about Peyton Manning, how is he going to respond, and then people were saying, "Oh, bring in Brock Osweiler, he'll have the better game," and that's probably true. If Brock Osweiler was in that game, he may have had a better game than Peyton Manning, yards wise. However, who was going to give you the better chance to win? I just think when it comes to experience, Peyton Manning was going to be that guy.
Exactly. And a lot of the analysts, after the game were talking about one thing that never changed with Peyton Manning was his head. Peyton Manning's got to be the smartest quarterback in the game. Just the way he can read defenses, that never changes. And that's something that helped him out a whole lot in this game.
And Brock Osweiler doesn't have to worry. He's going to be back. Like, the Broncos are not going to let him go. He's going to be back. He played well for them. He stepped up when they needed him. Yeah, I just elbowed JJ in the stomach. Don't play with my hair. He stepped up when he needed him. And in the end, when that happened, it was like a ceremonial passing of the torch for them. Like, although Brock Osweiler didn't take over the job, this was a signal for things to come. Brock Osweiler is, for all intents and purposes, the future of the Broncos.
Yes, he is, and I think he's going to be a really good quarterback for them in the future. I could see them being pretty good next year, but he may have more pressure on him knowing that he will be the starter if Peyton Manning retires, which he most likely will. But, I see a bright future for Brock Osweiler, but we'll have to see once he plays a full schedule.
Meredith, go on to your third topic. It is the Panthers' future.
Well,
wait, can I say one thing since JJ's standing in the room?
Go ahead.
The one thing that's not in the Panthers' future is a Super Bowl 50 ring. That's it.
Well,
there you go. I see you over there, JJ. Hey, JJ, keep pounding, man. Keep pounding.
Well, one thing I think is, the Panthers, like I said earlier in the show, they can't keep their head down. They, bring your heads up a little. Realize Kelvin Benjamin's coming back. And if you keep most of your players, if you keep Jared Allen, you keep most of the offensive line, and you just build from what you have in the draft, you could have a good chance of going back to the NFC Championship again. I wouldn't say the Super Bowl really quickly, but, they have a really good chance at having a really good season next year. But I will point out, they had one of the easiest schedules this year.
The Panthers have nothing to worry about. They have a great set of starters. They have a great roster. They have Cam Newton. They have they have the weapons on offense. Even if they were banged up, they have a stout defense. They'll be back in the playoff discussion around January next year. They'll be around there. We'll see how every other team reacts to Carolina. Will they go 15-1 or undefeated next year? We don't know. Can they make a run to Super Bowl? We don't know. That's just all speculation from this point because every single year is different. You never know what's going to happen. Cam Newton could go up there, dab, and break his forearm, and he's out for 10 games, and, well, there goes Carolina season,
Well, but one thing I think that's going to be a key part of this, like I've already said, is, the return of Kelvin Benjamin. You look at the weapons that Cam Newton had this year, and other than Greg Olsen, none of them are better than Kelvin Benjamin. Kelvin Benjamin's going to be a huge part of this offense next year.
And now we are going to go into our game show, the third block. It is by the numbers where we'll have Ryan, my boy Lavoy, giving out numbers. We call him 20-piece because he's dropping dimes 1 minute and he's dropping knowledge the next. Ryan, what you're going to do is you're going to give us a number, and we both got to guess where that number is hailing from.
All right. So first number up is the number 1, and this has to do with college basketball.
Kareem Canty's number?
I have no earthly idea.
That is true, but not correct for this case. Jared, any guesses?
May I phone a friend?
Sure.
I don't have any friends. Meredith?
Is this a stat or is it a player?
It's a stat.
1. Is it Villanova?
It does have to do with Villanova.
Is Villanova the number 1 ranked team in the country at this moment?
Yes, they are. And it's what's significant about it beyond that is this is the first time Villanova has ever been ranked number 1.
Boom,
So-
Meredith Heisman in your face.
So kind of a
Get
double
outta here.
meaning on that one. Next number up, number 5, and this has to do with the NBA.
Oh, boy. Number 5 has to do with the NBA. Is it have to do with the New York Knicks?
In a way, yes.
Does it have to do with Derek Fisher?
Yes.
Is Derek Fisher the 5th coach fired this season?
Yes, he is.
Boom! There it is. Wow. Meredith, you don't even get a chance.
Jared just dominating.
I shut it down.
Right now, Jared, nice job. Also, once again, another double meaning is that the Knicks have also lost 5 straight games. But yes, the main point was the 5th coach fired in the NBA this season.
I'm on fire.
Lots of 5s.
How about the number 194?
I got that. That is the number of total yards the Denver Broncos had in Super Bowl 50.
Jared is rocking this right now.
Boom!
Jared.
Meredith, where'd you go?
Wow. 3-peat for
I haven't
Jared.
had a chance to look at the stats yet.
194 is also the least amount of yards by a Super Bowl winning team. How about the number 6? And this has to do with the NFL. This one's tough.
Number of sacks in the game?
No.
Ooh, okay. Does it have to do with Super Bowl 50 last night?
It does not. That's why it's very difficult.
Oh,
but it does
man.
have to do with something done today.
Something done today by the NFL.
Does it have to do with a player being released?
Yes, it does.
Riley Cooper?
Yes, it does.
He was released?
Yes, after 6 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles. So spent all 6 of his seasons with Philadelphia. Of course, he had some controversies a couple of years ago with Chip Kelly. How about...
We won't get into
Okay,
that.
so 3-1.
Yeah, that's right, Jerry. We won't.
We won't get into that. You may not be able to tell because it's radio, but you'll figure it out soon.
Yeah, you can go look it up somewhere. How about the number 4, and this has to do with the NBA?
Oh, this is the cold streak right here. Does it have to do with a winning or losing streak?
No.
Number 4 in the NBA. Meredith, what do you think?
I can't think of anything with the number 4 right now.
Well, what is happening in the NBA this weekend? That should
NBA
start you off.
All-Star break.
That is true. Yes, and
Is the number 4 the number of contestants in the 3-point shootout or the dunk contest?
well, technically it is in the dunk contest, but that's not what we're looking for here with number 4.
I can't tell you.
Neither can I.
Is the number 4 the number of people who are in the dunk contest who have not been in dunk contest before?
No, but you're in a strange way a little closer.
Hey, I'm a little bit closer, man. That's all that matters.
So the number 4 is the number of first-time All-Stars in the NBA. Kawhi Leonard,
That was
Draymond
close.
Green, Andre Drummond, and Isaiah Thomas. So the first-time All-Stars, not quite dunk contest. How about the number 200? And this has to do with the NFL.
I got this. That's the amount of wins Peyton Manning has in his career.
There you go. Meredith knew that one.
For the record,
immediately.
I also knew that answer.
Okay.
Yeah, but you
okay.
didn't
You were a
answer
little
quick
slow.
enough.
Well, there's not a
And
brother
it's-
in here. We're
And
not
I
playing
know
Auburn feud.
it's the most all time.
There you go.
He beat Brett Favre last night.
Meredith knows her stuff on this topic. Wow.
Okay.
Strong start with Meredith catching up.
It's 3-2. I still got the lead.
And we got one more. So Meredith, this is the tie. You gotta get this. The number 9, and it has to do with Major League Baseball.
Well, boys, that's the end of my
Specific team?
No.
The number 9 has to deal with
JJ brilliantly just chimed in that you need 9 players on the field for a baseball team. That is correct, but not what we're looking here.
I want to say, like, if that was really the answer, and I wasn't gonna say that, and in fear of looking like a complete idiot on air, is the number 9 the number of what's the word I'm looking for? Is the number 9? Does the number 9 represent the number of players who took the
Just stop. Just
the
stop.
tag
Stop
from
right
this
now.
year? Whatever
No,
like baseball calls it.
The franchise tag or the arbitration. I don't know.
Yeah, the new thing that they have.
That is not what we're looking for, sadly, Jared.
Well, I mean, as long as she doesn't get it, I don't care because I win.
I'm going to give y'all a little hint since this is the last one.
Okay.
Okay.
Hands on the buzzer.
What season are we about to enter into? And why is it important for Major League Baseball? There's 4 seasons, guys. So we're in winter right now, and then we go to spring. Yes. And so.
Does that mean I win?
No.
Is like the number 9 representing when spring training starts or something?
Very close. Very, very close. Half of the.
Is that the draft?
No, draft's in June. It's okay. 9 days until pitchers and catchers report. So,
okay.
Like spring training begins.
Can I get like a quarter of a point for that?
You get half a point for that. Yes, absolutely.
3.5.
I was being very specific because I know baseball lovers would say, "Oh, we just can't wait till just pitchers and catchers report." So yeah, 9 days till pitchers and catchers report.
And that is by the numbers. I started out strong, but I got the win.
And I was only strong with one answer.
Well,
Meredith, you had 2, so
yeah, but I knew only one of them really well.
You had 2 good plays, just like the Panthers did last night. Yeah, I went there.
Aw.
And that
was an insult.
That is our third segment. When we come back, we're gonna wrap it up here on the Extra Point on WEGL 91.1 FM.
I'm Paul George of the Indiana Pacers. When I was 6, I had one thing on my mind. When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball every chance I could. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke. So I want you to learn the signs of a stroke fast. F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. Because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. I'm Paul George. Protect the ones you love. Spot a stroke F-A-S-T. Fast. Life is why. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to the Extra Point here on WEGL 91.1. It is time for the Extra Point, where we give our final last topic of the day, something that we really truly care about. And it's something that a couple of people in this room have heard me say time in and time out. And they're tired of hearing me say it, but I'm going to say it this one last time, and I'm going to let it go. Quite simply this. You can agree, you can disagree, whatever. But last night's Super Bowl was the prime example that defense wins championships. Now, let me explain this quote. When I say defense wins championships, that doesn't mean you don't need an offense. You still need an offense. You still need a good offense. But that defense, when you need it most, can always always step up to the task. Think about it as a Western showdown. At dawn, 2 gunslingers show up with their revolvers loaded. The guy on the left, let's say his name is JJ. And the guy on the right, let's say his name is Jared. And let's say JJ goes to draw that gun and it jams. Jared automatically won the shootout. Why? Because it's a lot easier to win a shootout when the other guy gun jams. Is that not correct?
Are you saying JJ's Cam Newton?
I mean, I'm not saying that exactly. However, I am saying this. Defense. And last time you can look up this number, but last time I checked, when a team is held to 0 points, the other team is undefeated. Wins, ties, but they're undefeated.
You know what? This game really reiterated that defense does win championships. And I recall, when Seattle beat Denver in the Super Bowl a few years back, I believe the score was 43-8. That was the number one offense that year. That was the number one defense. And the defense came out on top that year as well. This year just proved that, defense does win championships. And, that defense was really amazing last night. They scored a touchdown and Peyton Manning didn't.
Really, defense is the only part of the team that can at one moment stop the other team from scoring, but at the same time score points itself.
Exactly, and they were able to do both very effectively.
Now again, just because I say defense wins championships does not mean you don't need a good offense. You still need a good offense. It does not mean that special teams doesn't matter, because it does. It can switch field position. But I would rather a good defense show up and shut down a team than try to win a shootout, because ask Oregon, they have a great offense. Not this year, but in years past, they've had a great offense. And they can win shootouts. We saw it time in and time out. But when it mattered most, and that other team had a little bit better defense, guess what? They lost that shootout. You can't win shootouts like that. I mean, you can win maybe 9 times out of 10, but the one time when it matters is the Super Bowl. And guess what? The Panthers lost the shootout because that defense showed up and their gun jammed.
Yep, and you know what? Von Miller, he played an outstanding game last night, and he was able to, show the importance of having a really good pass rusher. He was able to keep Cam Newton on his feet, and Cam Newton knew he only had a couple of seconds to get that ball out of his hands, or Von Miller was going to come and ram into him and hit him as hard as he could. Von Miller really, he deserved that MVP more than anyone else. And he was the main part of that defense, and he was the most dominant player in that game, hands down.
Meredith, we're going to move on to your point. And I know that we were going to talk about Kelvin Benjamin, but we already kind of talked on him a little bit earlier in the show. So I remember you talking in the studio today about another topic. It was Cam Newton's press conference. You want to talk about that?
Yes. In my opinion, there are 2 very different sides to view this press conference. But at the end of the day, Cam Newton, your job is to sit in that press conference and talk about the game. Obviously, the journalists and the reporters need to realize Cam Newton's not going to be, all excited in that moment about next year. He just lost the biggest game of his career. But Cam Newton, you do have to sit there and answer the questions and go through, the whole program, because that's part of your contract. That's part of your job. Kids are going to look up to you. If you walk out, that's a little bit of being a sore loser, wouldn't you say? You wouldn't see Peyton Manning say, I'm done with this, and walk out. Peyton Manning, would sit there, answer the questions, and say, I'm on to next year, even though he's not, and say, it was a great ride, great season. The guys played really great. But Cam Newton just gave 1 or 2 word answers. He had the hood over his head. Most depressed guy out there. He showed that losing was one of the most important things to him in that moment. And I can't blame him for that. But at the same time, Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Two things I want to elaborate on. A, I heard a little bit of Bill Belichick in your voice. We're on the next year. We're on to Sunday. We're on to Monday. We're on to the Steelers. We're on to the Broncos. Oops, we lost.
Well, that's not an insult. You know, Bill Belichick's one of the best coaches. But every single press conference, no one really, I mean, they do make fun of him a little bit, but they don't say he's being unsportsmanlike by saying, you know, we're moving on to the next game. We're moving on to the next year. We're moving on to the next training camp, whatever it is. Because Bill Belichick, you know, he's not a sore loser.
And another thing I want to elaborate on is the press conference. You talked about how Cam Newton had a hood over his head. You know, and it was like a dimly lit room. There wasn't a lot of light for some reason.
I know. What's up with that?
And Cam Newton had the hood over his head to where, like, the shadow cut off at his nose. So you could kind of see his eyes. You kind of couldn't. And he sat there answering questions like, yeah, no, I don't know. And the only quote I could think about was from The Dark Knight. When Harvey Dent said, you either die a hero or live long enough to become a villain. Not saying Cam Newton's going to become a villain.
Ouch.
But, and there's not an insult at Cam Newton. But it reminded me of that quote. And I really do hope that Cam Newton just takes that kind of attitude that I'm just going to go out and just whip tail next year. Because I want to avenge this.
I sure hope so. And one thing that, you know, Panthers fans can look at as a positive to this is, you know, he was really disappointed and that really mattered to him that he lost. And he really wants to, you know, improve from this and learn from this mistake. But, you know, Cam Newton, give yourself a look in the mirror, watch that press conference and say that wasn't a little rude. You know, those journalists paid so much money and they've earned their titles to be at that press conference and ask you their $1 million question and you answer in one word. You know, as a journalist, that's kind of a slap in the face. Wouldn't you say you make it all the way to the Super Bowl, you have this great question for Cam Newton, win or lose, and he answers it with one word.
And we don't have much time left, but I just want to quickly elaborate that when somebody asked, did Ron Rivera have a post-game speech, and Cam was like, yeah, then they were like, is there anything memorable from that speech? And Cam was like, I don't know. You didn't listen to your coach after the game? That did get me.
Me too.
You got to listen to your coach, man.
No, and Ron Rivera, he had a great post-game interview with one of the reporters. It was really great. It was really, you know, inspirational, and he was really looking forward to next year. And Cam should learn from that, and that should be his next press conference lesson.
And that's going to do it for the Extra Point today here on WEGL 91.1 FM. I'm your host, Jared Dillard, here with Meredith Brito. Meredith, say bye to everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, then. And we'll be back next Monday at 4 p.m. here on WEGL 91.1 FM.